Okay, so for today, you're going to want your strap as usual, and a couple blocks would be good. If you don't have yoga blocks, you might want to grab a couple big books, that kind of thing, or you could even use, for the first thing that we're going to use the blocks for, you could even use a couple large pillows or rolled blankets or something like that. And if you don't have them for later, you'll just be on the floor. It's okay. So we're going to start for a few moments in the beginning of class in Supta Baddha Konasana, which we've done before. So you're going to have your strap handy and your blocks close by. You might or might not be using them. You're going to sit down at first and have your strap just over the tops of your ankles. Okay, and the strap will just be coming back alongside you like so. So it's on top of my feet, under my legs. What was that? Oh, okay. Then you're going to come to lie down on your back. And once you're on your back, you might want to readjust, tucking the pelvis a little bit so you have a not too much of a curve in the lower back. Then hold onto your strap on either side and pull your feet in closer to you. All right, so you're trying to get those feet close into you. Hopefully, once they're as close in as they're going to get, and you're on your sticky mat, they'll stick to your mat and they won't slide away. If they start to slide away, you could even just hold on with the strap to make sure they're in nice and close. Okay, so hopefully you can see that. Now you're going to take your blocks if you want to. This part is optional. Some people would prefer not to use the blocks like this. It's going to be tucking the blocks underneath the outer legs. So you're resting the legs on the props. This is where you could use folded blankets, rolled up blankets, or cushions, something like that. You want to start opening up the hip joint a little bit. And if it's too much to do it without blocks, that's when you put the blocks there. So let me see who else is chatting with me. Just take a few moments. Oh, hi. To breathe, and then we're going to work on a couple of things from this position. So, once you're set, have your eyes closed and just take a few breaths. And then we're going to start to feel for our ribs. I'm just going to be sitting up showing you this if you want to watch. If you're on the floor with your eyes closed, you can just listen. What we're going to do is just bring the hands around the sides of the rib cage and just slide down until you can feel that edge of the ribs, the bottom edge of the ribs. Just want you to feel where that is. You can feel all the way around in the front, up to the center. The ribs kind of go up in the center, the bottom of the sternum. And they spread out down. And then feel as far around the back as you can. Of course, lying on the floor, probably can't go too far around, but maybe a little bit underneath to the sides. And just see if you can feel where the rib cage ends in the back. And notice it's quite a bit lower in the back than in the front. So just take a moment, just gently feeling where that is, where the ribs end at the bottom edge. From here, you can relax your hands back down onto the floor. But since you've gotten in touch with where those ribs are, it is too dark. Okay, I'm trying to get more light in here. Can I get some more light? you doing? Okay. Can you just, okay. Okay. My assistant is going to bring over a little more light. Of course, the sun's going down, so probably in a few moments there won't be so much light coming in from behind me, but that is what's going on right now. So from here, if you feel ready and you put some blocks underneath your outer legs, try turning them either down to a lower height. Maybe you have them here and you want to turn them down to a lower height. Or maybe you could take them away completely. Don't do it if it feels like it's too intense. If it becomes too intense in the hip joint, don't do it. But sometimes after breathing a little bit, we might start to feel we can go a little bit more. Continue a couple more breaths, and then we're going to definitely take away the blocks completely in a moment because we're going to lift the legs up. All right, we're getting the whole studio set up. Hope that's, put it a little more towards the center. Okay, hope that helps. All right, and now I'm going to go back to that strap before you come up with the feet or anything and pull on it a little bit more. Maybe now you can get the feet even closer in. Continue. Maybe they can come in a little bit closer. And then you're going to take your hands to the tops of your thighs and gently start to push away. You might feel like this is maybe giving a little space in the abdomen, maybe a hollowing out feeling in the abdomen just a little bit. But that's not really the point so much as trying to get the knees not just to widen out to the sides, but also can they go down towards your feet any amount. Now this might make you kind of scoot on your back a little bit. Maybe the back, stretches out a little bit when you do this. Go ahead and let that happen if it does. But really it's more about, can we get the knees to point any more down towards the feet? It might be a very, very small amount. This is just to get you in touch with what that feels like, more than to really make a big change or movement. Good. Now you're going to take your blocks, if you have them. You can do this with your pillows or blankets. If you're using heavy books, though, don't do this with books. Okay, it'd be too heavy. You're going to stay for a moment and take the blocks and rest them on the inner legs. Try to get them pretty close to the root of the thigh at first. If it doesn't feel like much, the blocks aren't that heavy, then move them towards the knees a little bit. You can keep the hands there lightly just to keep them balanced. It's not about balancing the blocks. It's just about having that little bit of weight, opening up the knees to the sides any amount more. So you can move them towards the knees to get a little more feeling of weight. Taking a couple breaths there. Then finally, you're going to take your hands to the outsides of the legs and crawl the fingers towards the hamstring to lift the legs up off the floor. They're still in the same shape out to the sides. And then try to reach down either to the fronts of the shins or the fronts of the ankles. And again, hug the feet up and in any amount. So now the knees will be coming up quite a bit. Even more light. I don't know if it's enough, but I think it's about all we got. So hopefully between either talking, listening to my instructions, and seeing as much as you can, hopefully you can follow what's going on. From here, now let go with your hands from the ankle or shin area. And now we're going to use the hands ever so gently to push the legs apart. Any amount you can. So it's the same thing that the blocks were doing a moment ago, but now you can use a little more oomph if you're ready. You might not want to do too much. It's hard for me to see how much light there is because when I'm lying down, I can't really see the screen too well. So hopefully it's getting better. Take a couple breaths there and then going to hug the knees in. So bring the legs together finally and hug the knees in towards your chest. Take a moment, rock side to side, and then come on up. We're going to find a comfortable seat. So I'm going to take 2 blocks and put them together to sit on. Okay, so it makes like a nice big pedestal to sit on. I don't have to worry about falling off. You could, if you need to, in order to sit up well, you could sit on a chair to do this. So if you do sit on a chair, you would want to sit with the legs a little bit apart. Okay, so the knees wide apart and feet wide apart, just to make it possible for you to follow what we're going to do. If you're sitting on the floor or on blocks or any other props, try to sit cross-legged if possible. So from here, we're going to revisit some of the breath work we did last week. And if you didn't take class last week, don't worry, I'm going to explain it. So the first, at first I'm just going to explain what we're doing. So you can either just listen and watch, or you can do it along with me, but don't worry about the inhaling and exhaling because you're just going to continue to breathe normally and just get the all the different actions together that we're going to do. And then we'll do it together with the actual breath pattern. So first we're going to go back to that edge of the rib cage, that bottom edge of the rib cage that we found when we were lying down. You can even touch again there if you want. This is where your diaphragm attaches all the way around the bottom edge of the rib cage. When we inhale with a diaphragmatic breath, the diaphragm moves down. So we're not going to be breathing with a big expansion of the rib cage or moving in the upper chest. Okay, we're going to try to keep this area fairly quiet and still and use the diaphragm to breathe. It's also what we do when we breathe what we call belly breath. So the diaphragm will push down when you inhale. At the same time we're pushing down with the diaphragm, we're inhaling, we're going to be raising the arms up. So that will be the inhalation. And at the same time we're inhaling the arms up, we're also going to be rotating the thigh bones out. So just do that, okay? So if you're sitting down cross-legged, just think of from the hip socket, how can I externally rotate the thigh bones? So the outer hips and glutes contract, those muscles contract underneath you to pull the legs into that position a little bit. Don't overdo it, just feel the sitting bones come away from the prop when you do that, right? Because the muscle bulks up underneath a little bit. So we'll be doing that as we inhale and raise the arms. Then you're going to exhale, let go of everything that's going on with the legs, let the arms come down. And now, passively, the diaphragm is going up. When you exhale, the diaphragm domes up a little bit. It's relaxing, so it's a little more passive. We're going to think of lengthening from there down to the pelvic floor. Okay? So I know it's a lot to absorb. Don't worry if not everything comes together if this is the first time you're trying this. But I'm going to continue to talk you through it. So it's inhaling, arms up, externally rotating the legs. diaphragm going down, that's what happens. You don't have to make it go down. If you're inhaling, that's what's happening. So those three things happen on the inhalation. The exhalation, you let go. You let the arms come down, you relax the legs, and the one thing you're actively doing on your exhalation is a little bit of what we call mula bandha, which is a little bit of the pelvic floor action, okay? So we're just gonna think today a gentle mula bandha, meaning you're thinking of drawing the pelvic floor muscles towards the center. Don't worry about trying to lift them up. Sometimes we do that. Instead, we're just trying to draw everything in towards the center. If you haven't done mula bandha or pelvic floor work before, it's the same thing as Kegels. Well, for today, you can think of it that way if it's the first time you're trying it. It's also the same thing that you would do if you're peeing and you wanted to stop the flow of pee. You would squeeze together, right? So it's a little bit like that. But don't isolate it as much as you would for that. You're thinking of all the muscles that you can access in the pelvic floor, drawing into the center. So let's try the whole thing together. Start, arms long out to the side. Inhale, arms up and roll the thigh bones out. Exhale, arms down, relax the legs. Sitting bones release down when you do that. And a little bit of mula bandha, drawing the pelvic floor towards the center. Inhale, roll the legs out, reach the arms up, lengthen, and then exhale. Release the arms down, relax the legs. Little bit of a mula bandha. Let's try one more time. Inhale. Roll the legs out. And exhale. Let the sitting bones release down. Little mula bandha. That's it. We're going to revisit it when we're standing up and compare seated to standing with the same breath pattern. So for now, you're just going to refold your legs. Whichever leg was on the outside of your cross leg position, you're going to now cross so that leg is on the inside and so find your center again. Just going to do a couple side stretches. So one hand down, either side doesn't matter. Inhale the other arm straight up and then exhale, stretch over. Good. Inhale, switch the arms and exhale, side bend. Just go back a couple times. Inhale when you switch the arms and then exhale, side bend. Inhale and exhale. And exhale. And then finally come back to center. Rest the hands on the lap and close the eyes for a moment. So when we're seated, we don't normally think of tandasana, our standing mountain pose. But essentially we are in tandasana in the upper body when we're seated. Or we in this case, we want to be. Other seated poses, we might not feel that tandasana. This simple sukhasana seated pose, feel like you're in tandasana from the sitting bones up. So you can do that with your eyes closed for a moment, just finding the breath. Everything should be lifting up nice and tall. The center of the pelvic floor, where we were just drawing everything together. Think of a vertical line going up from there to the roof of your mouth and through the crown of the head. So everything is lined up nice and vertically over that center of the pelvic floor. Equidistant between your sitting bones to either side, pubic bone and tailbone front to back. Good. From here, we're going to come up to our cow and cat position. So go ahead and sit off to one side, swing the legs around, and if you're using props, you can put them off to the side as well. From here, we're going to come into tabletop. And start with your cow and cat a few times. So inhale. Let's tuck the toes when we inhale to cow. Arch the back and look up. Exhale, point the toes and go to your cat spine. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Continue a couple more times on your own with your cow and cat. And then after a cat spine, make sure your feet are pointed and go back to child's pose. Whenever you're ready, take your time and release the hips back towards the heels in your child's pose for a few breaths. Okay, from here, I'm going to come up into puppy pose. So, puppy pose, you're going to have your hips back over the knees. Make sure you have enough space in front of you that you can walk the hands forward far enough that the upper body can be in line with the arms. And then for a couple moments, you can even revisit that same breath. The arms are going to stay up, essentially the same position they were when we were seated up, arms overhead, only now they're reaching forward. But you can still think of, on the inhalation, lengthening from the palms to the diaphragm. And then the exhalation, maybe lengthening from the diaphragm now back through the tailbone. All right? So it's kind of an overlapping, two directions that kind of overlap, if this makes any sense. The inhalation from the diaphragm up is kind of like a big oval shape this way. That makes any, I don't know if you guys can even see. And then the exhalation is an oval shape, but it overlaps in the center. And that's the little area where the diaphragm moves up and down. Okay? So it's two sections, but there's a little overlap in the center. Okay, if you know what a Venn diagram looks like, that's the little overlap. Just that's the movement of the diaphragm. Diaphragm is an amazing part of our body. So just wanted to appreciate it a little bit. So from here, from your puppy pose, we're going to come into a forearm plank. You're going to put the forearms down, parallel to each other, spread the palms out on the floor, stretch the legs back one at a time, and lift yourself up into your forearm plank, now lengthening from the top of the head through the heels. Now cinching around the core, hold everything together as you slowly, with control, lower down into your Sphinx pose. So now you're propping yourself up on your forearms. It's kind of like a cobra shape, but you're just propping yourself up. Legs are parallel, toes pointed, tops of the feet pressing down into the floor. So we're going to move from Sphinx to Cobra to Locust. Each one of those poses, you're in this, roughly this shape of the upper body, a little bit of a back bend. The lower abdomen mostly stays on the floor. Depending on you, you might lift up a little bit more, especially in Cobra, but don't go too far. You just, see how your back feels. In between, we'll be lowering the upper body towards the floor, but with control. We're never going to just flop it down onto the floor. Each time you lower the chest and face towards the floor, you're reaching forward with the head and chest as well, okay? So you don't think of just going down to the floor. You're thinking, can I reach any more forward? So each time you're up, you're going to inhale. So let's start in Sphinx. Inhale, looking forward, press the tops of the feet down into the floor and have that same cinching around the core that you had in your forearm plank. That was too much for an inhale. So go ahead and take a couple breaths and we'll start again for inhale in Sphinx. Okay, let's inhale for Sphinx. Exhale, reach the heart forward, drag the hands back until they're beside your lower rib cage on either side, and then inhale up, Cobra. Exhale, release. Straighten arms back alongside you. Inhale up, Locust, legs also up off the floor. Keep everything up. So you exhale the arms forward, palms down, and inhale, slide the elbows back in towards you for your Sphinx. Let's do it again. Exhale, drag the hands back, reach the heart forward. Place the hands for cobra. Inhale up to your cobra. Exhale, release, straighten the arms. Inhale, locust, legs also come up. Exhale, arms forward, palms down. And inhale back to Sphinx. Good. Take a couple moments now to rest. Turn the fingers towards each other, elbows out to the sides, and rest the head down on the floor, on your folded hands, rather. We're going to do a couple things from a side forearm plank next. So we're going to stretch out the sides of the body a little bit, but just gently. You're going to keep yourself in this basic shape, but just think of, I'm going to come up to show you. So you're like this with your face towards the floor. You're just going to angle one elbow more up and the other elbow comes down towards your side. So just move a little bit on the floor so this side starts to stretch out a little bit. We'll take a few breaths there and then just go to the other side. It's just a little bit more opening the side. Okay, so from here we're going to do our side forearm plank. You're going to come back up first, basically to a Sphinx position. Turn the left forearm across the mat and just come to your left side. At first, the left hip stays down. We're going to do both sides, so if it's more convenient for you to do the other side so you can face me or face whichever way makes sense, so you can hopefully see a little bit better. And when we do the other side, you can switch around. So first, we're not in a tandasana position, okay? The upper body is curved to the side a little bit, all right? The left side is closer to the floor. You can even accentuate that a little bit by letting the left rib cage drop down to the floor even more. You can feel a little stretch there. So to come to our side forearm plank, we're going to do it a few different ways. We want to come to tandasana. We're going to be using the legs to do so. First, we're going to do it from the knees. So first, look down at your body and make sure you're in a straight line. Oh, like a bird's eye view would be straight this way, okay? Now, you're going to keep the knees where they are and just bend the knees so the feet go back behind you, right? Not bringing the knees forward. Now, you can even use your right hand in front of you. You're going to lift up off the floor and try to find that tandasana. Okay, so now we're using the legs, especially the left leg, to hold us up in a straight line. So now we're finding tandasana through the upper body, all the way to the knees. Okay, and then lower back down. We're going to do a couple different variations now. You can still think of that same line from the pelvic floor, the center of the pelvic floor, up through the roof of the mouth and the crown of the head, trying to keep that all in line when we come up, okay? When we're down on the floor, it's not in line. It's like in a curve, so we are going to try to straighten it out. Next, you're going to do kind of a modified, almost like a tree pose, still on the left knee. So the left knee is still bent with the foot going back behind. We're going to come up onto the outer left knee. The top leg is kind of in this tree-ish position, but the foot is on the floor past your left knee. Okay, hope you guys can all see this. Okay, so my left knee is pointing right at the back of my right heel. And then we're going to come up again, side forearm plank, pressing the left knee down. Outer left knee down, left hip lifts up, and see if we can feel a straight line for our tandasana in the upper body. And then come back down. So next, it's optional if you want to take it further. You can just try that again. If you want to go a little bit further, you can do it from your feet. Okay, so let's try one time. If you want to try just with the feet, both legs straight, the legs are going to be stacked on top of each other. And same thing, you're going to try to find tandasana, but now it's the whole body from the soles of the feet all the way through. and then lower back down. Last time, this is going to be a challenge. You can try just the same way again or one of the previous variations. If you want to try, you're going to try to lift the top leg into a modified tree position. So just to revisit tree position, tree pose, leg position. It's either here, the sole of the foot on the inner left calf, or it could be all the way up on the inner thigh. It's kind of hard to place the foot there with everything else going on. So I'm going to say just give it a try placing the foot on the inner left calf. We'll do tree pose later when you can bring it up to the inner thigh. So your choice, you can just do any of the previous variations, or you can come up to your side, plank both legs, and then try to place the right foot into your tree pose. Maybe the top arm can even reach up. And then slowly lower down. Okay, you're gonna roll onto your belly, rest for a minute, and then we'll do the other side. I'm gonna swivel around, so I'm gonna be on my right forearm on this side. So here we are. I'll give you a little extra moment to rest. So you're going to feel that a lot of that work from side forearm plank in your side body. So we're going to do the other side, and then we'll do another little side stretch moment to release some of that. So when you're ready, you're going to come back to your Sphinx position. Turn the right forearm in. And first, we're going to check that we're, again, in a straight line, bird's eye view, straight line. First couple, we're going to do with bent knees. So bend the knees so the feet go back behind you. The knees don't come forward when you do that, right? You're going to just come up, knees down, side forearm plank, and then come back down. Just hold maybe 2 or 3 breaths. Now let's try our kind of mini side forearm plank tree pose with the knee down. So now the left leg is going to turn out and knee pointing up. Sole of the foot is on the floor just past the right knee. So now we're going to press the outer right knee down to come up to your modified tree pose, side forearm plank with the knee down. And come back down. Same way now. Optional. You can go back and do the knees down version again. Or if you'd like to try with the legs straight, I'm going to do the same way. I'm going to think of, well, here I am from the top of my head curving down, and then the legs are straight. I'm going to try to get everything to lock into that side tandasana position, right? And just try to sense that happening. Last variation, if you choose, I'm just doubling up my mat because the bony elbow on the mat doesn't feel good. So you can always do that for more padding under the elbow if it bothers you. So now the last version will be, if you want, optional, lifting the top leg into a modified tree pose. So again, let's just try placing the foot on the inner right calf for now. Unless you're really just going for it, you can put it up higher. Since we're not really bearing weight on the legs, if you go to the inner knee a little bit, it's not going to be the worst thing in the world. I wouldn't do it though. I would try to do either. I would just do the calf for now. So once again, you're going to lift up, try to straighten things out, press the outer right foot in to the ground, and a modified tree pose. And then lower back down. Once again, turn towards your belly and come into that resting position with the hands folded underneath your forehead, elbows out to the sides. And take a few breaths there. And then if you want to do that little side stretch moment again, you're just going to angle one elbow up past in the direction of your head, going past it. A few breaths, and then other side. Okay, good. So From here, we're going to finally come all the way to our downward facing dog. So straighten yourself out again. And let's switch back to this side. Come up to your tabletop. Okay, so shoulders over wrists at first. One leg straight back, other leg straight back, and then finally hips all the way up and back to your downward facing dog. Try to find that breath again. So you're inhaling, pressing into the hands to lengthen the upper part of the spine. Exhale, lengthen from the diaphragm down to the tailbone. And then pedal out the feet a few times and start to walk the feet forward towards your hands. Soft forward fold, knees bent, feet apart, dangle over the legs, shaking out the head, yes and no. Bend the knees even more, lift the head and push into the legs to lift up. Now is when you're going to maybe grab onto one of your blocks or your big thick book if you don't have a block. If you don't have either one of those things, don't worry about it. You're just going to do all of this on the floor. Just adjust that a little bit. So first, actually we're not standing on the block at first at all. We're going to just stand on the floor together. We're going to find that same breath in Tadasana now. So Tadasana, you're going to try to get your feet close together. If for balance reasons or pregnancy, you need to have the feet farther apart, fine. If possible, you're going to try to bring the inner edges of the big toes to touch. Just have a tiny space between the heels. Hopefully the inner legs can touch as much as possible. Okay, of course, some parts of the cannot touch because they go in a little bit, tops of the calves, that kind of area. Don't worry about that. But as much as possible, you're bringing the legs together to create a sense of one leg. Okay, like you're a wooden toy that never was finished being carved. So you have one big leg. Okay, so from here, you're going to think of inhaling those arms up again. Diaphragm goes down, lengthen from there up to the tips of the fingers. Exhale, now you're lengthening from the diaphragm down to the floor, pressing the soles of the feet down. Okay, you can do the Mula Bandha again on the exhale, but you can also think of just pressing the feet down instead. You can do both. Let's try it a couple more times. Inhale. Try to lift, almost like you're lifting the rib cage off the pelvis. And then exhale, press down with the feet. Good. So let's try a couple things in Tadasana. First, you can shake out the Tadasana a little bit. Separate the feet and just shake out the legs a little bit. Have the feet kind of wide apart. Now you're going to bring the arms up overhead. Elbows out to the sides and just hold your hands overhead. Just, cup the fingers around each other. Nothing fancy with the hold. Just holding the hands overhead. From here, we're just going to kind of circle the upper body around. So we're going a little bit forward, a little bit back, and a little to each side. And continue to breathe. So there's not any really wrong way to do this. This is just to kind of give us a moment to not think about all that straight lines into Tadasana and everything, just to loosen up a little bit. So go both directions a few times. And then the next time you're kind of going over to your right side, also take it a little bit back. A little bit back. So you're going to your right side. The right hand is going to pull the left hand a little bit more over your head. Just a little bit. So you're now stretching along here. but also it's kind of going a little bit more to the front. Maybe you feel in the armpit, maybe a little bit the front side of the ribs over here. Good. And then come up to center, and then we'll do the other side. So going over to your left, also a tiny bit back. And now the left hand is going to pull that arm very gently to open up the side, but also coming towards the front a little bit there. Good. Come up to center. Now we're going to go to the right side again, but now forward. So now the right hand is going to pull the left arm straight and a little bit forward. So now maybe the ribs a little bit to the back on that side can feel a stretch, a little bit opening up there. Coming to center and the other side. Left hand pulling the right arm nice and long. Good. So now we're going to do our little exercise with the block in Tadasana. Okay, so you're going to stand with your left leg on the block. Okay, your left foot on the block, I should say. So make sure the foot is in the center of the block. Okay, if you put it too close to the edge, you run the risk of flipping the block up. So don't do that. You don't have the foot centered on the block. So there's no danger of it flipping. If you're using like a big dictionary book like that, it's probably much bigger than a block, so it's not going to flip. We're going to stand in Tadasana with only one foot being supported. So now, I just told you, you're supposed to have one leg, right? So now you really are standing on one leg, but you're trying as much as possible to recreate Tadasana, even though your right foot is not supported. It might just be touching the very corner of the block. So now, when we're saying, oh, we want our center pelvic floor up through the top of the head, that is off center in terms of our leg, right? So the leg has to work really, really hard to hold us up. So we're going to do a couple things to strengthen that leg. Standing up nice and tall, you can just have your arms alongside you. Make sure the right foot is not on top of the block at all. Inhale, standing up straight. Exhale, bend the left leg so you can put the right foot on the floor. Inhale, push through the left foot to bring the right foot off the floor. Exhale down. I'm just going to do that a couple times. Inhale and exhale. Try to keep the upper body still. Inhale, standing tall, and exhale down. Maybe one more time. Inhale and exhale. Good. Let's try the other side. So now the right foot is going to stand on the center of the block. And try to recreate your Tadasana as much as possible, even now the left foot is not supported. Maybe the first side was easier, this is harder, or vice versa. Legs are probably, one is probably weaker or stronger. So you never know until you test it out. You might have to feel like the foot on the block is doing all kinds of little micro adjustments to try to keep your balance, right? So now that we've tried it, trying to recreate our Tadasana, we're going to strengthen that leg. Again, inhale, standing up tall, and then exhale, bend the right leg so you can put the left foot down. Try not to shift anything else if possible. And inhale back up. Exhale down. Inhale back up. Exhale down. And when you exhale down, gently, don't just plunk the foot down. Inhale up. Exhale down. Inhale up. Exhale down. Last time, try to exhale down, but don't touch the floor. I should have tried this on the other side. Inhale. Okay, good. So you can finally put the block to the side, and we'll do a couple standing poses. You're going to come back to downward facing dog. Bend both knees and walk the feet forward. Try to keep the legs straight this time. Inhale, Lift up, half forward fold, torso parallel to the floor, and exhale, fold again. Bend the knees as needed. Get the hands beside the feet and step the right foot all the way back to a low lunge position. Drop that right knee to the floor and inhale up, crescent lunge. Exhale, a hands down. We're going to come to a warrior two. So tuck your back toes and straighten out that back leg. And plant the foot down so the foot is angled maybe a tiny bit forward. Front knee is bent over the front ankle. And come up to your warrior two. So let's think about a warrior two for a moment. The front knee is turning out. So this front hip can feel a pretty good amount of opening right away because we're trying to turn the torso to face to the side as much as possible without letting this knee collapse in. So we talk about this a lot. But what's happening in the back hip? This leg is not turning out. If anything, it's turned in a little bit, but it's definitely not turning out because the toes are going a little bit forward. If you let the toes of the back foot go back, then this leg starts to turn out. So you don't want it to turn out. So make it at least neutral or turning in a little bit. This hip is getting open too, but in a very different way. The leg is opening up this way, right? So just feel that happening. If you feel like your warrior two is kind of high, this might be as much holding you back from lowering your pose as the front. It's probably even more. But don't worry about forcing it. You're going to go into the pelvic floor actually to open the hip. Instead of just thinking to the hip, open up, open up, open up. Think instead of that pelvic floor. Instead of, and Mula Bandha, we were drawing it together, right? Instead of drawing it together, think of spreading it apart. Think of opening up the pelvic floor side to side. This will hopefully ease this opening in the back hip. Will also allow us to find a verticality, the verticality of Tadasana in the upper body. It might help you spread the feet further apart, which will lower your pose. So finally, full warrior two looking over the front hand. Take a breath there. Next, inhale, straighten the front leg and reach the arms up. And exhale back down to warrior two. Inhale up and exhale back down. Last time, inhale up, and now we're going to swivel, turn the left foot in. So now the feet are roughly parallel and you're facing forward. Bring your hands to your hips. Make sure you're centered between the legs. All right, you're not, like sometimes we kind of don't realize it, how we might be favoring one side. So the legs are opening equally from the center. Press down a little bit with the hands. Inhale, arch back. And then exhale, fold forward over your legs. Hands down to the floor or your blocks. And just take a couple moments stretching forward there. Good. And now we are going to walk the hands towards the right foot. Okay, so we're coming all the way over to the right side of the mat. Or the back of the mat, it might be for you, depending on how you're orientated. Don't worry about it. We're going to go back the way we came in a moment. Step the back foot forward. Straighten the legs if possible. Inhale up to half forward fold. And exhale, fold again. Bend the knees, sitting back. And come up to stand. My plant's a little bit in the way. So now we're just standing in Tadasana, facing the other way. Inhale the arms up. And exhale, fold again. Inhale halfway up. And exhale, fold now. Bend the knees as needed. Step the left foot all the way back, low lunge. Drop the left knee and inhale up to your crescent lunge here. and exhale down. Tuck the back toes and we'll set up for our warrior two on this side. So the back foot is down, heels are lined up this way, right? Again, we're gonna just spend a few breaths in our warrior two, thinking of opening or stretching the pelvic floor side to side. Right away when I think of that, it helps me think, oh, I can actually move my legs apart a little bit. So by moving the legs apart, we're starting the stretching process. By opening or concentrating on that opening in the pelvic floor, we might be able to move the legs apart. So it's a feedback system, both things can help the other. We're also going to try to find that uprightness in the upper body for your tandasana in warrior two. So we're finding tandasana in these different poses. And then hands out to either side in your full warrior two. I feel like someone just played Words with Friends with me or something. I heard something going on. Okay, from here, I'm gonna inhale, straighten the front leg, reach the arms up, stretching tall, and then exhale back down. Inhale up, and exhale back down. Last time, inhale, and swivel the feet to face forward, parallel, exhale. Arms down, hands on hips. Make sure your feet are equidistant from the center. Inhale, press the hands down, arch back, and then exhale, fold forward. And rest your hands on the floor or blocks, or even maybe walk the hands back underneath you. Okay, take a couple moments there. From here, have your hands on the floor still, bring them a little bit forward, turn the toes out. We're gonna come to goddess pose. So here, you don't need to have the feet too far apart. If you have a very wide straddle, you might actually move the feet closer together. When you bend the knees, you want the knees to be over the ankles. You're gonna come up to your goddess pose, trying to press the knees out, okay? So it's similar to our supine that we started with at the beginning of class, that we're trying to let the knees come apart as much as possible. And those same outer hip glute muscles that we use to rotate the hips out when we're seated, maybe now if we engage them, it'll actually pull the knees from behind out. Have your hands in your prayer position or cactus arm position. Try to lower down any amount. And then finally, inhale, up, swivel to face the original front of your space. Both hands down, swivel onto the ball of the back foot, and step the left foot back. Drop both knees, and go back to child's pose. And take a few breaths in your child's pose. So we're going to finish up trying out a couple tree pose variations. Well, we're just going to do tree pose, I should say. The variations are optional. You can just do tree pose. So a couple things to prepare. If you have a lot of trouble with balance, you can always go put your hand on the wall or a piece of furniture for balance. I'd much prefer, I'd suggest that you get to do the pose, even if it means holding on to something for balance rather than, just struggling so much with balance we can't even think about the pose. If, on the other hand, you want more challenge with your balance, you could do that same idea as when we did our tandasana standing on one leg. Because, let's face it, tree pose, you're standing on one leg. You've already done it standing on the block in tandasana. So you could try it in tree pose if you want. If you want to work more on the position of the leg or anything, you just do it on the floor. So you'll have time to try a couple different ways if you want. You're going to start off standing on your left leg, and you're going to turn the right knee out. Again, you can just bring the foot to the inner calf, and that's your tree pose. If you want to bring the foot up higher, you might need to use your hand to place it. You can bring it up as high as possible. If possible, all the way up to the top of the inner thigh. Foot going straight down. Now, whichever one you're choosing, find your balance. If you need to hold onto something, you're holding onto something. Think of this leg being like two legs, okay? The two legs can be like one leg. The one leg can be like two legs. The foot and the leg are pressing into each other, going directly up from where they're pressing into each other is the center of the pelvic floor again. Instead of trying to draw this knee back, we're thinking of widening the knee out to the side. Of course, it doesn't really go anywhere. Your leg doesn't get any longer in this direction. But by thinking, I'm going to send that knee out to the side, you're actually going to find it goes back. You can bring your hands into prayer. Any amount, widening the knee out to the side, also dropping the knee down. As you drop the knee down, that drives the foot more into the opposite inner thigh to seal the foot to the leg. From that space, you can always come out of it if you need to. I just want to say from that space where the foot presses into the leg, going up into the pelvic floor, center of the pelvic floor, keep drawing up from there to find your tandasana in the upper body, and that will help you find your balance. If you're looking at the screen while you're doing this, you might find it's harder to keep your balance. So once you have everything situated, try to raise your eyes up to a focus point on the wall opposite you. That's something not moving, right? So I'm going to do a couple more breaths on this side. Again, the higher up you can get the foot, the more possibility you have to drop the knee down, right? If the foot is lower on the leg, you can still think of dropping the knee down. It's still going to help you, but it's not actually going to be able to go down. The foot has to be, the heel has to be higher than the knee for it to go down. You can still think of dropping it down and widening it out to the side. Okay, that might be enough on that side. So take a break, maybe shake out the legs a little bit, and then we'll try the other side. So I forgot to stand on the block. I'm going to try to stand on the block on this side. So once again, center of the block. If you don't have to stand on the block, it just adds a little extra challenge because it disorients you a little bit because you're a little bit farther from the floor than you're used to. So you have to work a little bit harder. So it's just a little challenge. Again, you can stand on the block and just have your foot low on the calf. That's another option. You're widening the knee out to the side and letting the knee go down. If you want to bring it up higher, same way. And then once you have your pose situated, everything's starting to come together, then try to find that focus point, something to look at so you're not staring at the screen. And because if I fall down and you're looking at me, then it'll make you lose your balance. So it's kind of tough standing on the block. I'll just try it on the floor this time. Again, try to tuck that heel up as high as you can. Having the light come from behind me is very revealing because I feel like there shouldn't be any light there, but it's coming through. That means my heel is not up as high as it could be. I'll have to work on that. Again, Sending the knee out to the side. Can I make this wider, the pose wider this way? And can I drop the knee down any amount? Good. Take a couple more moments if you want for any variation of your tree pose. And then we're going to come down to sit. So I'll just give you guys all a couple moments to finish up doing whatever you need to do or would like to try in your tree pose. We didn't even get to any different arm variations. I usually just keep the hands here. Of course, if you're feeling really balanced, you can try reaching the arms up. And that might actually be really nice to revisit that lengthening from the diaphragm up with the arms up. When you're ready to come down, you're just going to find a comfortable seat with the legs straight out in front of you. Press down into the floor either side of the hips to lift and lengthen the spine up. And then exhale, fold forward, reaching for your calves, ankles, feet, anything you can reach, or using your strap around your feet to fold forward any amount. And take a couple breaths there. And then release and come up. I'm going to come down to lie on the back once again. First, we'll just do a bridge. So bring the feet in close to you. Feet are parallel, hip width apart. Legs are going to stay parallel. So keeping the knees moving forward. Inhale, lift the hips up off the floor. Arms are down either side of you, palms pressing down. And lifting up any amount. And slowly lower back down. Option to do one more bridge just like that, or if you want to add a supported bridge, you can do it. You can do supported bridge instead. I probably should adjust this a little bit. Okay. So with the supported bridge, you would come up and put a block underneath the sacrum. You also do this with a thick, folded blanket, something like that if you don't have blocks. So for your supported bridge, put it under the sacrum so you can rest in a little bit of a bridge position without having to work at it. So it's quite lovely, I think. Optional to stay like this or stretch the legs out. Push the foot away. And then the other leg straightens out, pushing the foot away. So the legs stay a little bit active here. Good. And then rebending the knees if you straighten the legs. Spending a couple more moments in regular supported bridge. I like to stretch the legs out. It's a great release for the whole front body, but I like to come back to this before moving on because this is actually more restful. So we're starting to move into that part of class where we want things to be a little more calm, to not have to use as much effort. So always, I like to come back to this a little bit longer if we're doing supported bridge before moving on. So gently lift up off the block and come all the way down. And then we're going to come to a little bit of a twist. So bring the knees up a little bit and hug them in gently. And you're going to bring your right leg closer into you and cross the legs close to the knee. Okay, the knees are close to each other. You either have the legs stay like this, or if you can do this eagle wrap kind of position, you can try that as well. So the right foot would hook around behind the left calf. So you can either have that, or just the right knee crossed on top. You're going to take the legs over to the left. Trying to keep the right shoulder toward the floor as much as possible. And taking a few breaths. Rolling onto your back once again. We're going to switch sides. So now cross the left leg on top of the right, so the left leg is closer to you. Choose either this leg position or wrapping the legs. And then we'll let the legs come over to the right side. Again, the left shoulder dropping towards the floor as much as possible. And slowly rolling onto the back. Hug both knees in again. And then if you choose, you can do happy baby here, lifting the feet up, reaching for the backs of the knees or the outer edges of the feet, and pulling the feet down any amount. Good. Take your time. If there's anything else you want to spend a couple moments doing to finish up, take this opportunity if you would like. Otherwise, we'll get ready for Shavasana. When you're ready, you can straighten the legs out on the floor. If you have a large pillow or something, you can always tuck it underneath the legs. I have a bolster, so I'm going to use that. It just goes underneath the knees. Something like that can feel a little nicer for the lower back, especially if you tend to have a big arch in the lower back all the time and you want to release that a little bit. Lifting the legs up, give you that chance. You can even tuck the pelvis a little bit and then let the legs come down. And now you can let the legs relax, the feet roll open any amount. Arms down alongside you. Turning the palms up. Just let everything completely relax. Take a quick scan through the body. Maybe the eyes are still kind of working. Sometimes they tend to do that without us realizing it. Like we're still trying to see something, even though the eyes are closed. So try to release the muscles around the eyeballs. Try to release the jaw muscles. If it requires like a little wiggle to get something to release, you realize that it's still holding on to tension. Go ahead and do that little wiggle and then try to come to stillness once again. So the process of going into Shavasana is finding that stillness throughout the body, as much as possible. And then also in the mind, letting go of the storyline or letting go of, sort of where your mind always goes to when you have a spare second. Like what's the, you always start to think about. Could be something worrisome, something that's causing you anxiety, or it could be something even nice. It could be kind of like, that usual like daydream fantasy kind of thing that you just always go to whenever, you have that extra moment of time. if you find yourself doing even that, even though it might be a nice kind of thought, see if you can just take a step back and say, okay, there's that thing again. Let's call it X, thing X, whatever that is for you. Just take a step back and say, oh, yeah, there I go again, thinking about X. Maybe I'll just give that a break, give X a break for a moment and say, you know what? I'm just going to notice what my breath is doing right now. Maybe I'm just going to feel the sensation of the floor wherever it's touching me. Maybe I'm just going to listen to a distant sound out the window. Maybe I'm just going to notice that my heart is beating and my blood is circulating. I'll let you think of any other ideas that you can focus on to let the mind become still. So if you'd like to rest in Shavasana even longer, please do so. If you're ready to come out of Shavasana now, just start to lengthen and deepen the breath once again. Wiggle the fingers and toes. When you're ready, bend your knees and roll over onto one side. And gradually come up to a comfortable seated position. Thank you so much for joining me today. Oreo says thank you too. Sorry for the lighting issues. I hope you were able to follow along reasonably well. Maybe I should have done the session at 7 or 8 when the sun is even lower. So there wouldn't have been such a contrast with the light. But hopefully you muddled through with me. Thank you so much. Next week we should be back on Fridays again. Please share with family and friends my YouTube channel. If you would like to leave any comments, I would love to hear from you. Hope everyone's well. Namaste.